podcasting duo that after having a UFO sighting in March of 2018 have started to examine UFOs and other paranormal. Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, coming to you from the glacial dumping grounds known as the Michigan Basin. I'm Michelle.
And I am Wayne.
And we are a Michigan-based husband and wife educator and podcasting duo that after having a UFO sighting in March of 2018 have started to examine UFOs and other paranormal topics within Michigan and beyond.
Topics include UFOs, the paranormal, conspiracy theories, ghosts, alternative history and archaeology, cryptids, and all things strange and paranormal. So sit back, grab a drink, and come along with us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole. All right, everybody. How is everything going? You are watching the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, live edition. Very first time giving this a legitimate run through. So close to Halloween, we might as well have a good time with it and need to bring on a very special guest. And that person is from Follow the Reaper, our good friend, Burton. What's up, Burton?
How's it going?
It is going amazing. How's it going for you?
Excellent. Very happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. We definitely have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, we talked about getting together and everything, and talking about some of this stuff for this time of year. It's always a good spooky time of year to talk about things, and I couldn't think of a better person to get on here, especially short notice, man, and just give it a crack and let's do this. So what's been going on with you, man? The last time we were talking to you, you were doing the Lost in the Dark thing, and you still are, which is still an awesome podcast, talking to metal bands and interviews and checking out new music. But now you're doing this Follow the Reaper thing.
Yeah.
And this has got me really excited. And I hope I was a little bit of a part of pushing you toward this to do it, because I think you're going to make a really good researcher. But hey, take it away, man. Why don't you go ahead and fill us in a little bit on what you've been up to?
You definitely had a big part of it. That was for sure. You were definitely very encouraging. You're like, man, you need to start a paranormal podcast. And to be honest, back when Lost in the Dark started, that was one of the original ideas, is to go that route with it. And in a sense, there's always an element of that in Lost in the Dark, because usually when I talk to bands, the last question that I always ask everyone is, have they ever had anything, an experience in their life that they would describe as paranormal? So there was always kind of that element in there. I'm heavily influenced by things like Coast to Coast AM, and I spend tons of time watching other paranormal podcasts and listening to them and watching that stuff on YouTube, and it's always been something that's fascinated me. So between you, it was you kind of like putting that seed in there, and then I found this other podcast called Monsters Among Us, and that format, the way they did it, where he actually, that the host of that podcast actually has a hotline that you can like call into and leave a message of your firsthand account. And so it was that style, that format that really like triggered something in my head, where I was like, this is the format that I want to go with right here, where I get to hear people's firsthand accounts and kind of like put it together in an episode and react to it and stuff like that. you know, in some ways, not incredible. Like a lot of your guests are firsthand experiencers as well. So it in some ways very similar. But whereas Follow the Reaper isn't an interview based show, it's more of like I get stories and I play the story. Hopefully it's from the person's. Hopefully they send in a recording or something like that where it's their firsthand account from their voice, which I think is always more helpful. And then yeah, I'll play that and kind of like narrate it and react to it a little bit. Or people can send them in through just an email where they write it out and I can narrate the whole thing for them. But I much prefer it when people send in recordings, you know, a voice memo or something from their phone in their own voice, you know, in their own words and everything.
Exactly.
But I did kind of what I'm calling now kind of a soft launch with the first 4 episodes, where I didn't really have anybody sending me anything yet. So I kind of just in chronological order went through some of my own personal experiences. And now I have a handful of really, really good pieces that people sent me. And I've just been working the last couple of days actually on like editing them and putting them all together in a podcast format. And those will be starting to come out hopefully tomorrow or the next day. So those will be coming out very soon.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you really started to pursue this. I think it's something interesting, and definitely collecting people's stories. And that's one of the things we like to do is talk to them. And, you know, you've got a great story about Dogman that I definitely want you to share with everybody on here today. But before we get into that, first of all, I got to say, all right, chat's popping right now. So we got some people coming in I want to say hi to real quick. So Guy Merritt, welcome, man. Glad to see you on here. Thank you for saying everything looks and sounds good. So that helps out. So welcome. And then we got Mike Weber. Hey, Mike, what is going on?
Shout out to Mike. He's one of my buddies. He's from the Bog Talk podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. And then we see somebody with Lost in the Dark podcast.
That was me.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to pull somebody else in here really quick. And this person is the lovely wife, Michelle.
Yeah, you get my voice only.
Hi, Michelle.
Hey, what's going on, Burton?
Not much. Good to hear from you.
So, kind of the disembodied voice sitting over here to the side, keeping an eye on
person.
Yeah, that's because Home Slice over here has a bunch of schoolwork to do.
Yeah, she's gonna be busy working over there while she's keeping an eye on chat and everything. So, yeah, all right, man. So this is kind of like our first real big deal of doing some kind of a podcast live. And you know, I was thinking that maybe doing something once every week or two, you know, just what do you think? What do you think's a good, because there's some people out there that do this like every day, and it really becomes an income for them, and it's not really something I'm looking for. But I think people really enjoy this kind of format and going and watching something like a, you know, almost like a TV show. And that's not something I've ever wanted to do, but I started playing with StreamYard and I'm like, you know what, this is pretty cool. So I don't know, man, what do you think? Because you do a lot of videos. I mean, all your stuff is video podcast really, and then you pull the audio out. But what's your thoughts?
The live streaming is new to me as well. It's not really something I've done too much at all. I mean, I think I tried to go live on YouTube like once with Lost in the Dark back in the very early days, and it didn't really, like, something went wrong with it or something. I can't totally remember. It was a long time ago. But so it's not something that I've really gotten into yet. But what I have noticed is that especially with some of the paranormal YouTube pages I follow and stuff like that, they'll release, you know, 1 or 2 hour to hour and a half long videos a week where it's them going to like certain locations and you know, doing a paranormal investigation. And sometimes before they'll make a big deal on all their social media of when the video is going to come out. They'll do the countdown thing on YouTube or on Instagram and all that stuff. But sometimes before the video comes out, they'll go live on YouTube and like interact with fans. It is a format that I like a lot, with being able to directly interact live. I think that's really cool. As a fan, I tune into a lot of live streams to do that for things. It's just not something I've really gotten into yet. So I think there's ways to do it. And I think, everybody kind of has their own style, but I think something like a couple times a month, at least like getting the ball rolling that way, especially if you have an episode coming out soon or that day or something. I think it could be cool, because it gives people, even if you did it, even if you like posted an episode and then went on the same day, but like after the episode was already posted, so some people had time to hear it already and they can ask questions and stuff like that, especially for your format and for any paranormal format, really. Like, I think that would work. I think that'd be really cool. Because isn't that about like your what, don't you guys release about 2 episodes a month?
Yeah. And I was thinking about that, kind of releasing an audio podcast, let it sit out there for a week, and then do like a follow-up live show talking about that, and having people come on, listeners and things that want to make comments or point things out that we might have, when we're doing interviews, we're intently listening to people, but we're also reading ahead for some of the questions and stuff that we have prepared, and we'll miss things. I go back and listen to our own episodes, our old ones, to pick things up. So I kind of really like that idea.
It is. I like your idea even more of letting it sit for a week. And because if you do it, so if you released episodes like the second and fourth week of the month, or the first and third week of the month, and then you did the live streams the third and the fourth, kind of a thing, that I think would be that's a really good idea. Yeah.
I don't know, guys out there watching right now, Guy, Mike, what do you guys think? What's your thoughts? And this is kind of that interactive stuff that you were talking about, which is really cool. So I don't know if they're still out there, but Yeah,
and definitely big shout out to Guy. I got him on as a friend on Facebook finally. So and he's someone I've really wanted to talk to for a while. So big shout out to him for sure.
Oh yeah. Guy is fantastic. He was one of our first guests, just like you and Aaron.
And that is something I was going to say. It is especially what I found personally, at least when I first started Lost in the Dark. I would go back and listen to some of those episodes, and like especially the early ones, you quickly pick up on stuff that you do where you're like, ooh, I could change that to make this better. I could alter this a little bit. I could, it's don't get me wrong, it is painful sometimes to listen to yourself, but it is helpful where like you can be like, well, I shouldn't talk so much. I should let the other person talk. You learn stuff like as you go. So it's cool. It's like an evolution thing.
You're exactly right with that. And that was one of the things I picked up from myself, because being a teacher, right, we're trained to basically be pedantic. I mean, we talk and we want to explain things down to the lowest level so everybody in a classroom can pick up, what we're putting down, kind of a thing. And so I will generally, when I ask a question, I'm not asking a question as an interviewer as much as I am like a science teacher. And I want to, throw out every possibility instead of going, so what do you think? And then sit back. Because I'm just like chomping at the bit. I want to talk,
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I found a similar thing with me. There were a few times where I was listening through some old ones and I was like, dude, you need to shut the hell up.
Yeah. Hey, Big Willie has joined us. What is going on, Big Willie? How's it going, man? I haven't heard from you in a while. Awesome seeing you in the chat, man.
Hell yeah.
I hope everything's going well. So
I do want to get into there was sort of a catalyst for us going live tonight.
Yeah.
that I totally didn't see coming. Do you want to intro it, or
Are you talking about my video?
well, no, I'm talking about the episode 2, the Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to play it? You ready?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right. So here's what Burton's hitting at, and we're very, very excited, man. I was shocked to be able to get a hold of this guy and talk to him. And Burton started this because I did not know that a new season of Unsolved Mysteries came out, and and believe it or not, there was something specific about Michigan in there.
And
so let's go ahead.
As a matter of fact, they normally Netflix, it's on Netflix, just so everybody knows. Normally Netflix will release a whole season at once. That's usually how they do it, but for whatever reason they're doing it weird with Unsolved Mysteries, where they're just releasing 3 episodes at a time. And as it turns out, episode 3, having nothing to do with anything paranormal, also takes place in Michigan.
Yeah, that's the murder, I believe.
Yeah, it was a murder. Yeah.
Was that Melvindale?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that's a crazy story, and honestly, I don't remember that story, man.
I had never heard of it, and I watched it earlier. I was like, oh my god, what the hell?
All right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and see if this will work, and you'll see what Burton was talking about, what transpired, and now what we got going on. So check it out, everybody. Yes, that's right, Michelle. Who is that? What did we get?
We got Jack. Jack's coming on Thursday.
Yes.
Absolutely. Super excited. I walked into work this morning talking about it.
Yeah, so Jack Bashong Jr., who was the radar operator of the National Weather Service weather radar in Muskegon on March 8th, 1994, and became a massive UFO incident, and we got him. So we're going to be interviewing him via the what do we use? Zoom, right? Yeah. See, I'm getting confused because at school we use Google Meet, but yeah. So we're gonna interview him on Thursday night, and then put together the podcast, and I've already got some great questions lined up for him, man. But we'll be releasing that one on the 30th. So I'm thinking we'll do a live show the following weekend to discuss that. And Burton, we'll probably get you to come back on.
I would love to, because that's going to be unbelievable.
And I'm asking him some different kind of questions that I don't know if he'll be ready for, but it's going to be very interesting.
I can guarantee one question that Wayne won't ask. So what are your ties to Michigan?
We already know that. Yeah. No need to ask that. So
nope. Yeah, not with this one.
Yeah, so what an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, man. That was amazing.
So yeah, like I was I found you guys at, I think, episode 2 or 3 of the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, where you did an episode on Dogman, and it just popped up on my Facebook, and I listened to it. I checked you guys out. Since then, we've been on each other's shows a whole bunch, but I've of course listened. I've heard every episode of your show, and there seem between your personal experience and a lot of experiences that other people on your show have had, there seems to be a pattern forming where there seems to be a lot of unusual activity in the sky in March in Michigan. And so I wake up, I think I was sitting out drinking coffee or something like that a few days ago, and I turn on this Unsolved Mysteries episode, and it's about a massive UFO sighting in 1994 on March 8th in Michigan. And as soon as I saw that it was March 8th, I was like, okay, I'm texting Wayne. I have to text Wayne right now because this is insane. If he hasn't heard of this, if he hasn't seen this, he needs to, because this lines up with everything he's been talking about. And yeah, I messaged you about it. You watched it right away. Guy who is in the chat, like, he watched it, like, and his experience was 10 days later in the same year. Unbelievable. This was, and I actually have a couple articles pulled up here about it. Over 300 witnesses in 42 counties of Michigan, including Muskegon, Ottawa, Berrien, and Allegan. And the sightings were reported to 911. There's police, like, some of the witnesses are police officers. There's radar data to support what people were seeing at the exact time, 100%. It's unbelievable. Had you ever heard of this before watching that?
I can honestly say no.
No,
I mean,
you figure when all of that happened, I think I was about, 20 years old?
Mm-hmm.
And that was March of 94. We were actually dating then.
Yeah, I was playing in a band, touring all over the place. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing anything about that at all.
Well,
and man, that was just...
It's like west side, east side of the state doesn't hear about what's going on the west side.
right?
Well, I mean, I don't remember any news articles coming out here in Michigan. And the one guy in the episode said, it was worldwide, and like, it got picked up by all kinds of...
Well, Larry King.
Yeah, Larry King was talking about it.
I remember my parents used to watch Larry King, and I'm like, absolutely just clueless. I mean, that tells you, as far as, our age at the time, and lack of social media, because with social media things become repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, March 8th of 1994, I would have been 4 years old, so I wouldn't have seen anything anyway. But no, it really blew my mind, because when I was watching it, I was like, I have some, like, loose, vague memory somewhere at some point in time of something like that happening around then, but, like, that's it. And when I was watching it, I was like, this is like when Wayne and Michelle found out about the 60s flap with what's his face?
Raymond Szymanski.
Yeah, exactly.
Swamp gas my ass.
The swamp gas thing. And, like, listening to your podcasts and hearing basically you guys talk about that as you discovered it and all that kind of stuff, I was like, that's exactly how I feel right now as I'm watching this. And it just, I had to message you right away, and I had to make sure that you guys saw it, because I was like, this lines up perfectly with everything they're talking about. And Guy saw it, and it happened right close to him, or his experience. And what really blew my mind was when, and I don't know if it was totally, like, accurate or not, but there was, like, a shot where it was like a computer generated thing, where it was like they were backing up out of Michigan, and there was a whole bunch of dots showing where all, like, the reports were coming from.
Yep.
Dude, it was all over the entire state. It wasn't just on the west side. It was like, it went into the middle, up north, like, it was everywhere. Now, it's not the same type of, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this is the same type of craft that Guy witnessed, that was witnessed on March 8th, but man, like, regardless, it's still unexplainable events. And according to these articles that I've read, one of the still to this day, one of the single largest mass UFO sightings to date. Like, it's one of the big ones. And it's like, how the fuck have I never heard of this? Like,
yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. It's like, even the 1966 one, the largest number of people that they've come up with that saw that UFO flap that was going on in March of 66 was about 120 people, if you add in, like, the co-eds of Hillsdale and stuff like that. So that was the highest number until 94 of, like, a mass sighting.
That's insane.
Now, I've had some private conversations like back and forth with Jack about this. And I asked him, and this is a little bit of a spoiler alert on something I want to go to, a little teaser. But I asked him about, what about the other side of the state, man? I said, I've got people telling me March 18th triangles, man. March 23rd triangles, low to the ground. Triangles being pursued by F-16s out of Selfridge. And you know what he said to me?
What?
And no fault to him or anything, but he said he's only focusing on the March 8th one because he wants to focus on just that incident because of all the data and everything that they got.
Understandable.
So, yeah, I mean, that's legit, you know.
I just like the fact that it's like once you're retired, you can talk.
That's definitely something that we should mention. That like he basically he spoke to what did he do? I think he spoke to a newspaper reporter a little bit or something.
They told him that he was not allowed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to be known as the UFO reporting agency or whatever.
Yep.
And it's
I think he talked to, what was her last name, Tilly?
Yeah.
And it was after the fact. It was many years later after
Yes.
he had retired, and she was doing investigations and interviews about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she said that she tried to reach out to him several times, and they told her that he either wasn't there or he was not available to speak.
But he also literally kind of got chased out of Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah.
And had to go away. And this is a man who wanted to be a meteorologist since he was a child. He started working at the news station when he was like 13 or 14 years old. Like, this was what he always wanted to do. And they're like, if you still want a career in this, you just got to pack up. You got to separate yourself from this whole story.
Yep.
And that is insane. You know,
there's more stuff, dude. I'm going to tell you, there's more stuff that's going to come out on the podcast.
Beautiful. So, all right.
Yeah, all I know is, and I told Jack, I said, at that point, I was almost ready to throw my remote through my TV. I got so angry at that. And he said, thank you, appreciate that. But let me tell you some of the other things. And I'm like going, oh no. I said, can we talk about this? He's like, absolutely. So everybody, hold on to your hats, because when we do our next live in a couple weeks to kind of dissect, Jack's interview, we'll have some more stuff to talk about for sure.
Cow, that's gonna be amazing,
dude. It's gonna be one of those things like you heard it on our podcast first, kind of a thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm really mad at myself right now because I meant to write. Dude, I heard a podcast recently. I really can't. I want to say it might have been a Monsters Among Us, but I'm not totally sure. I kind of don't think it was for some reason. But I heard another one recently where there was a triangle sighting, but someone made mention of like some sort of declassified military aircraft that was a triangle thing. Like a black, I know it has the word black in the name. I can't remember, like black something or something black. I can't remember.
Is it the Dark Star?
No, it's not the Dark Star.
Because they recently declassified that from that. Well, they did a mock-up of it for the new Top Gun movie, and they've come out and said that's a real thing, and they've declassified it, and they're going to be releasing stuff about it soon. It's like a scramjet type of hypersonic, aircraft. Does like Mach 8 or something ridiculous. Yeah, I think it's called Dark Star.
But because I saw the new Top Gun movie, but it still acts like it still performs like a jet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this thing that I'm talking about doesn't perform like a jet. It's more like hovery and stuff like that.
The TR-3B stuff.
actually maybe that. Yeah, that might be it. I can't remember. I'm really mad I didn't write this down.
It was a fake.
It really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was created with.
It might have been because didn't Rogan recently have on some new air pilot that saw things? It might have been that.
I'm not sure. I haven't watched Rogan.
I don't really watch it either. But I saw something pop up on my YouTube, like a 10-minute clip from a recent episode with a new pilot, and I know I watched it. That might have been it.
Oh, okay.
But he talked about some sort of triangle thing that has 3 lights on the bottom of it that can like hover and float and all that kind of stuff, and like I can't remember what he said about like how it works, but yeah, the thing about it is nobody really knows if it's real or fake. But like that stuck out to me because I was like, well, so many people are seeing these triangles, it's unbelievable. Like it's
I think we got a pretty convincing case for triangles being on the east side of the state.
For sure.
They behave differently. They seem to behave a lot differently than the circular saucer shape, I guess, on the west side of the state.
But isn't it interesting? One thing that I found interesting in that Unsolved Mysteries episode was that there seemed to be 3 or 4 lights in the sky. And one of them would kind of go off from time to time or whatever. But a lot of the time they would be in the formation of a triangle. And they seemed to know when the radar was pointing at them and stuff like that. Dude, that was, oh man. Yeah, that was crazy.
Dude, when they showed the way, and I don't know if that's really what happened, and that's one thing I could ask Jack when he comes on, if that's exactly how they like performed. But what that shows, number one, is intelligence. You know, that these things were reacting to the radar being focused on them. One would move and then the other 2 would move. And when I see that, the splitting type of a thing, to me that sounds like decoy, right? Like you want to get decoys out there so that it looks like it's more than one craft. Yeah. And it's really just one. And then the other one started showing up. So that was one thing I was going to ask him about that. But let me see. I want to try to present something to you. And let me see if I can find it. I'm going to try to upload this here and see if this is kind of what you were thinking that you heard about. I'm digging through my UFO file because I've been building my own UFO file here. So let's see. Oh. And then I got somebody asking me when's the next podcast. Let's see here. Oh, it won't show up. It won't let me just show artwork. Okay, never mind. It's a triangle, man. It's, except this one has got the light in the center, like the bigger light in the middle of the triangle. But I know the one you're talking about, the one they show the video of it floating and stuff. That's been out for a while, and I believe that was created with a game engine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So let's jump back though. Let's get out of UFOs since we're getting close to Halloween, man. Follow the Reaper. That sounds like a song title, man.
It's actually an album title from Children of Bodom. And a song title. That's totally where I got the name. I was like, I was trying to think of a name for it, and I was like, it just popped in there one night. I was like, Follow the Reaper would be a great name for a paranormal podcast. And even though it's not an interview show, even though it's not a heavy metal show, it still kind of has a little nod to my heavy metal background. So that's why I chose it for sure.
So with you just starting this up, man, what have you dug up so far? What's been turned into? I know I sent you my one experience.
Great story, which that episode will be out this week with that story on it, the Baby Gate story.
The Baby Gate. Craziest thing ever, man. I swear to God.
Great story. Really blew my mind. So far, at least, a lot of the ones that have been sent to me have been from friends locally. So a lot of what I've been uncovering so far have been like stories of places that are, I would say, probably very haunted in Lansing, Michigan, and like in areas that I never would have thought anything like that would happen. Lots of stuff like that. Your story, also, like I said, I kind of started it off with the soft opening, or the soft launch or whatever, kind of just going through my own personal stories in chronological order. And I got to a point where those stories are from more recent years. And in those recent years, my roommate and I have gone out on a lot of investigations together. So him and I have done probably, I don't know, six or seven or so, something like that, and if not more, actually, now that I think about it. And I'm still kind of going through it chronologically, but I had him on recently to talk about probably the most active place him and I have ever visited together, called the Dundee Mill down in Dundee, Michigan. And that episode will be coming out very soon as well, where he kind of goes into everything that happened to us that night. And there was some pretty extraordinary things. We saw things moving on their own. We had great ovulus responses, temperature changes. We saw shadows that shouldn't have been there. And we were in a fairly large group of people, and it was a private investigation. So everybody that was there was handpicked by us. And we got, I think we got a lot of really good evidence that night. And this was back in the early days too, like when we were kind of just starting out. And so we didn't have a whole lot of great equipment ourselves. But whenever you go to places like this, shout out to, I think it's called Ghost Hunts USA on Facebook or something like that. Like pretty much any place you've ever seen on TV, and even more places that you've probably never seen on TV in these paranormal shows, are available. You can pay a ticket and go get locked in overnight. And we've done a lot of those kind of investigations, and this was one of them. And on a lot of them, there will be like some local paranormal group hosting the event, and they will they'll bring all their equipment and let you use it and stuff like that. So that's how we were able to use an ovulus, because we still don't have one. But yeah, it was a really wild experience, and it was really, really great to get him to talk about everything that went on that night. And that episode will be coming out soon. He also had another story that he shared with me on about going to a graveyard, stuff like that. I think I only have 4 episodes out, and then I have 5, 6, and 7 like in the bank ready to go. And then I know I have someone else sending me a few more stories soon. So yeah, I'm starting it off as more or less a bi-weekly podcast, but this week I'm gonna post more because, leading up to Halloween, just for the Halloween season and stuff. Yeah. Just because it's a little bit of a slow roll in terms of people sending me stories so far. But yeah, like if anybody watching this right now does have a story that they would like to share, and either talk to me about it privately or have it shared on the show, reach out to Follow the Reaper podcast on social media or Gmail, and I would love to hear from anyone, because I am looking for stories, that's for sure, always.
Yeah, for sure. So, and there's not a lot of people watching live right now, but, this will get saved up on YouTube and people watch them later. And so, yeah, for sure. If you've got a good ghost story or something like that, shoot an email over to Burton for sure.
I always love good ghost stories. Anything paranormal at all. I would love a cryptid story, a UFO story, all that stuff. pretty much all I've had so far, besides my own personal experiences, like with Dogman and stuff. Besides that, pretty much all I've had are ghost stories. So, which is fun, very cool. But it's I would like to expand it. I don't, to everything. You know what I mean? But I do have real quick. I do have a couple friends watching right now. Shout out to Alex, Hayden, and Megan. I hope you all are seeing this. Hope you're having a good night.
Awesome. Yes, welcome. Hope you're enjoying and chilling out with us. And speaking of Dogman, I got a Dogman like right over my right shoulder over here.
Yeah. That classic photograph. I love that image.
Yeah. So why don't you tell our little audience right now your experience with Dogman, because this is good. I mean, and I know you told it on our podcast before, and you were very young when you experienced this, but you still remember it.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us about it?
Very vividly. I remember it very vividly. And this was long. I mean, I was young enough I think I was 4 or 5 years old. I was young enough to the point where I could be easily picked up by an adult. And this was long before I was aware or into anything paranormal. And it wasn't until years and years and years later where this memory, like when I found out about what a Dogman even is, this memory triggered. My family used to have a cabin up in Prescott, Michigan, near Skidway Lake, which for anyone local is somewhere in between like Taos and West Branch on the east side of the state, northern part of the Lower Peninsula. And we had a cabin in there on a lake called Elbow Lake. It wasn't exactly on the lake. Like there's a dirt road and another cabin in between our cabin and the lake. And the cabin was on like in like a little cul-de-sac where the road went like a U, and our cabin was kind of at the top of the U. So you could pull in front, but there was also a way to pull out back to the same road. And it was like a long grassy path, and on both sides there was just giant, trees, woods basically. And there was like a breezeway, and 9 times out of 10, my family would always use like the back door and park around back and all that stuff whenever we were like there. And this time we were up there. It was me, my little sister, who at the time couldn't have been more than like, I don't know, like her and I are only 3 years apart, so maybe like 1 or 2, and my parents and my grandma and grandpa. And they had like, I don't know why I was the last one out of the house, but I went through the back door like as we always do, but they were all around front and I didn't realize that. But when I walked out, I remember looking, because as soon as you walk out the door, you can see straight down the path where that's lined by trees and like the back driveway or whatever. And I just stood there for a second, like a little confused, and then I watched a deer hop into the middle of the path and then really quickly just take another big hop and keep moving. And then a second later, I saw a gigantic jet black dog like land in the middle of the path, just like the deer had just done. And I remember it kind of like looking over at me and like lifting its front hands, not paws, because I remember seeing fingers curl off of the ground, and then it just looked straight ahead again and continued to pursue the deer. Now, at the time, I had no idea what I had seen, but I remember I started to scream, and I remember my grandfather running around the side of the cabin, scooping me up in his arms and running me to the front of the cabin. I don't think I even told anybody what I had seen because I didn't know. I was like 4 or 5 years old. But it wasn't until years and years later, like I said earlier, where I learned about what a Dogman even is, and it triggered that memory in my head. I was like, wait, I saw it. that thing that one time, and that's kind of what it is. And this is a very this is an area where there are there may be 20-25 cabins in this little cul-de-sac, and then it's just surrounded by emptiness, all woods. Like, it's just you're far away from anything pretty much. So it is very much out in the middle of nowhere, even though it's just this little cul-de-sac of cabins around this lake, Elbow Lake. And yeah, like it just popped in there, and I've never forgotten it. And yeah, I think it's who knows? I was a little kid. Maybe the memory got disrupted. Maybe something, I don't know. But to this day, I still think, yeah, that's a real memory. And but memory works in weird ways, so you never know. But since then, I've definitely had between myself and my cousin Preston, we've both had some fairly interesting experiences driving around dark, woodsy dirt roads late at night that we can't explain as well. So there's that is something that is a topic I follow a lot, is the dog man. And while I don't think there is any real good footage or anything like that of it out there, people are definitely seeing something. And
yep.
I actually, there's another great podcast called the Dogman Encounters podcast, hosted by Vic Hundiff. And there was a story, an episode about actually now it might have been 5 episodes ago, because he's been doing part 1s and 2s a lot lately. So it might have been 5 or 6 episodes ago. But a truck driver had an incredible experience in the Manistee National Forest in Michigan. That really blew me. That was it. Anybody that wants to hear a good Dogman story, go check that one out for sure. It's a where do you land on this? Where do you land on the cryptids and stuff like that? Do you think they're out there, or do you think maybe people are misidentifying something?
I don't think I'd rule anything out nowadays.
Yeah. I'm not gonna rule it out. I think some things get misidentified, a mangy bear, or
yes,
something definitely like that. Bears are very canine related, look like, dogs once you get some of their hair off of them. But I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I've seen there's an episode on Netflix, and I can't remember what, I think it was, the one with William Shatner.
Oh, I watched that. Yeah.
Right.
I can't remember the name of it.
The rancher, she gets a dead chupacabra that's been going after her chickens.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's some kind of a strange mix between a North Mexican wolf and a coyote or something. So 2 species that should not be able to interbred and created this thing. So dude, absolutely, I think there are things out there, and there's probably not a lot of them, so we don't see them all the time. And then if they die in the woods somewhere, they're decomposed and eaten in probably no time flat. So we're not really going to find much of anything unless somebody actually goes out there and takes one out in some way. But I thought that chupacabra thing was amazing.
Yeah.
Because the thing acted exactly like what chupacabras were told. It basically, drank the blood out of her chickens, and it just happened to get hit by a car outside her ranch. And man, speaking of that, did you ever go back to that cabin older now and look around to investigate that area?
Not investigate. It is a place that my great grandfather built, and I've heard different stories. I don't totally know how, but somehow my family lost it. And it's a place that my cousin and I fully intend on putting back in our family someday. And for a while, for a few years, especially before pandemic and all that, we would take a yearly summertime drive up to it. There was right down the street, there was like a dock that we would out. And actually to this day, there's still, well, as far as we know, the last time we were up there, to this day, there's still a boat, like a little, shitty metal rowboat sitting in the weeds that has our last name on it. So that's still there as far as we know to this day. And we'd drive past it. We'd go out on the dock and like have a beer or something and just sit there on the lake for a minute and then come home. Like that's that's pretty much all we would do. But we'd always go check it out and update. And we on a regular basis, we try to see if it's on Zillow for sale or something. Like, when can we buy it back? But in terms of a full-on investigation or anything like that, no. But the last time we went up there, actually, it might have been in 2020. It might have been right at kind of that first summer of the pandemic, now that I think about it, because that's after I discovered Randonautica, and I was like, we should do some Randonautica while we're up here. So we did actually end up like driving around some weird places because of that. And one of the, like, because you set, for anyone that doesn't know, Randonautica is an app that you can get on your phone where you set an intention. You just say it out loud, and then you're like, I want to find this, and then you click it, and it gives you a location. And a lot of people, like, it got popular right at the beginning of the pandemic because some kids found like a dead body out in Seattle or something like that, off a pier or something, using Randonautica when their intention was dead body. And we did like stuff like Bigfoot and Dogman and ghosts and haunted and things like that. And I do remember ending up on this super tight dirt road, like real tiny little dirt road, pulling up to the location. And it was a fenced off property with a whole lot of signs that suggested they will kill you. And they had a whole, and our intention was Bigfoot, and they had a whole bunch of like Bigfoot signs too. I was like, son of a bitch.
Wow. Wow.
So that was a weird, but most of the time you do that app, you end up finding nothing. But if you do it enough, eventually something weird happens. And so in terms of full-on investigation, not really. But we did play around with Randonautica a little bit last time we were up there.
Man, I would love for you to go up there and ask questions of the people that live up there. If, seriously, like, do you guys remember, have you ever saw something like this, and see what people's accounts are?
That's actually a really good idea, because there are places up there I could do that, and there are that little cul-de-sac area where our cabin was. Pretty much every cabin up there is like family owned, like the family has owned it for a long time. So like it's lineage, you know what I mean? It's like historical, and they would honestly, if Preston and I went up there and we said, hey, our last name is Bargerstock. My grandfather that built it was on the other side, so his last name was Plaza. And if we dropped those names to a lot of the people up there, they would probably remember our family and be willing to talk to us. So, I mean, like I said, the boat's still sitting there with our name on it. So,
well, speaking of Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff, there he is.
Hi, guy.
Dogman. I look like a dog.
How are you
What's
doing,
going on, guy?
Better. And, we tried this the other night with me, and I was using Linux, which is a weird thing most people don't use. I think the issue was I followed the link that you gave me, and now I'm in what I can't recall the name of the product that you're using, the
StreamYard.
StreamYard, yeah. I'm in like the back end of that. I had YouTube open last time. I was just messing up because I'm 70 and fuzzy headed and didn't win the genetic lottery in the first place. So how you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. We're talking Dogman right now and paranormal, and we were talking about UFOs and started talking about The fact that we're going to be having Jack on here in a couple
Wow.
of days, and
Man, I am so geeked for you to have Jack. That's,
well, here we go. Let's take a look at this again.
wow.
There it is. We got him.
Yeah, that's very neat.
And I got some questions lined up, and we are super excited. We're going to interview him on Thursday.
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to hear how he faked those radar returns.
Right.
It's crazy. I was listening to somebody. I believe it was Bill Konkoleski, and I may be mispronouncing his name. He's the head of Michigan MUFON.
Yes.
I know you and I both have got kind of mixed feelings about MUFON, and I'll never, ever, ever get over the fact that they didn't contact you, given that you're a science teacher, an earth sciences teacher in high school. That's crazy. I mean, I would have thought that would be something they'd want to jump on. I'm not patronizing you. I mean it because they came to my house. I'm a guy at the time working a temp job at a factory in New Hudson for like $8 an hour. It just doesn't make any sense. But
well, I'm figuring they probably didn't have anybody that was close by, or they just might have overlooked it. I'm cutting them, some breaks, because if you look, Michigan is in the top 10 of the UFO sightings of the United States. That's a lot. So they were probably handling a lot of things.
They do some good stuff, and there's some really good. Listen, Bill's a wonderful guy. I'm not saying that. I really like him a lot.
Yeah, I want to get him on the podcast.
Oh man, he's got an extraordinary. He's had experiences his whole life, and he's solid as a rock. But he said to me, I was joking about the radar returns. He didn't say to me. I saw him in some video. I believe it was Bill. And this is so kind of either Bill came up with this or he was quoting somebody else. And I was talking about radar returns. And he said, with respect to evidence, he said, we actually have an embarrassment of riches, meaning, radar returns, trace landing cases. People poo-poo it, but, 4 people see a UFO and somebody, 2 of them have got scoop marks or something. I mean, evidence can't just be, I've got to have one of these craft in my garage to disassemble. I mean, at some point, I've thought about making a video for YouTube about this haywire thing we're doing as far as, you and I talk bluntly, we talk politics, we talk everything. You said something the other night up to the effect of, I don't recall, I'm paraphrasing, but you said something along the lines of, I'm waiting for the data. I want data. And I'm like, actually, there's quite a bit of data, in my opinion. Maybe I'm full of beans, But I mean, you can't simply discount, a doctor taking an implant out of somebody's arm that's made out of meteoric, components that it's in the middle. They've taken them out of the middle of people's heads, And I'm like, you can just say, oh, that just doesn't exist, but it does. I mean, unless you believe that doctors and these documentaries are all lying, and so to me there is evidence. And Jack, God bless him, provided, by virtue of being in the right place at the right time and being a meteorologist, the guy's a trained scientist, devoted his life to his science. He's not nobody can say, hey, this guy's a crackpot. No, he works for the national, he's working at the National Weather Service radar. Come on. They got the data. I mean, the thing jumped 10 miles in went 72,000 miles an hour. What is that? So anyway, that's my preaching moment for the.
Well, on that note, I just want to let everybody know that if you are watching this, you are watching the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast live edition. And we are joined with Burton from Follow the Reaper, and Guy Merritt just jumped in from various interviews about his triangular UFO experience. And then right over here, the disembodied voice is the lovely Michelle.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Yeah, who is still doing schoolwork.
Oh, I thought you were just too cheap to buy her a webcam.
Oh no, I have No, I have the webcam. I am keeping it off because I am so intently focused on getting my middle schoolers through writer's workshop.
Yeah. Hey, Barry, how's it going, man?
Dress up this crew, you know.
Yeah. So, you know, anybody joining us, we're happy to have you here. Or if you're watching later, you know, great. This is kind of like my second test of playing around with StreamYard, the cheap free version. You know, there's not a whole heck of a lot we can do, but you know, definitely having a good time here, having a good discussion about paranormal, UFOs. I don't know what's more paranormal than UFOs, but you know, ghosts, whatever. Dogman.
I've got to interrupt you. And this,
Yeah.
I'm going to show my ignorance and, you know, reveal myself to be this guy with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology who didn't follow, you know, I didn't follow the paranormal stuff at all. What is Dogman? I don't even know. I literally do not know.
So the way, whenever somebody asks me that, the way I like to describe it is basically a werewolf that never changes into a human. It's that creature on its own, and it has something along those lines has been reported many times. I mean, some of the earliest reports actually come from, I think, Wexford County in Michigan back in the 1800s, when the first settlers were coming over here and interacting with the Native Americans. Were some of the first reports of that to ever happen. So I think it was some lumberjacks or something were the first ones to ever like fully like solid report of it out in the woods. And it's basically like a dog version of Bigfoot, if you will. Like
Okay,
a werewolf,
yeah.
Bigfoot.
So it's not something that transforms it, like you said. It's not like a werewolf that it's a guy and then it's
Right.
into a,
No, but it does oftentimes get a little bit, I think, convoluted with the skinwalker folklore from Native Americans, because the skinwalker folklore is a part of that folklore is transformative, where the individual will change into something. But so it does get connected with that a lot, but I don't, in my opinion, I don't think it's that. Now, it's not to say I don't believe that skinwalkers could be real, but I think they're a completely different thing.
Yeah, and I think Barry in chat said it perfectly. It's the Michigan's version of Bigfoot. There's a song about it, and it was in Manistee National Forest. I wouldn't say it's a version of Bigfoot. It's something different than Bigfoot, but
it is different. And the song that he's referring to was done by Steve Cook, which is a radio host, used to be a radio host up in Traverse City, and he made the song. I don't know how he heard about it originally, but he made the song as kind of a Halloween lark, like kind of not a joke, but like a little thing that he was doing for his radio show for Halloween. Didn't take it seriously. He made the song, and then he started getting a ton of calls of people actually like reporting, saying they actually saw this thing.
Well, I think it was inspired by a call or two before he even wrote the song.
Okay.
And then he wrote the song about it, played the song, and then people started calling in, like you said, like, hey, we've seen this thing. We know what this thing,
And
there are a lot of bizarre cryptid, you know, strange. People have seen, what is it? Flying, these things fly. Is that Mothman? Is that what that is?
Mothman? Yeah, that's
flying
Thunderbirds.
Yeah, strange. You know, and I've reached a point in my life. I maybe it's just because it was a joke in my family, the degree to which I was honest. My sister used to say, if war breaks out and Butch gets taken hostage, they'll know everything in 5 minutes. Seriously, she used to say that. I mean, but I think most people are honest. I mean, there's just no benefit in saying you saw something you didn't. I mean, yeah, there's the sliver of kooks that this stuff, people want attention. I hear this with the UFO stuff, and I'm like, this isn't. And the same thing with saying you've seen, say, Mothman. There's no. What kind of benefit do you get from something like that? I don't see it. I just don't.
I don't either.
Like I said, a rare person might do it. I think it's a tiny minority of people that they may misidentify something, but to make something up like that's really weird. Like, I'm 125 foot beneath this massive triangular UFO. I'm gonna tell people that. I worked out in Las Vegas playing music. I turned down a job with Mickey Gilley when it was the biggest thing in country music. And saxophone player called my house. I didn't take the job because I didn't want to be away from my wife and my dog. I never liked performing. I mean, I've had plenty of attention. I've got a degree in psychology. I've had a really full, rich life. I'm not going to make up a story, suddenly go off. Suddenly, when I'm 41, I always start making up stories about aliens and UFOs. I mean, come on. And I don't think most people do.
Right.
All right. I want to read something that Barry has put up in the chat, which I think is really, really cool. And Burton, man, plan a trip, dude. It says right here, it was on the front page of our paper 2 weeks ago about a trucker that had seen it. And then he goes on to say, out of 1,000 of the stories, it only takes one to be true. And that is absolutely true.
Where?
Yeah.
So Barry, where is that at?
Where
you're at?
Because honestly, it was about 2 weeks ago where I heard that Dogman Encounters radio podcast where someone called in from the Manistee, like that's had an experience in the Manistee National Forest. So I wonder if that's what he's talking about.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't say I agree with you, Guy. It doesn't. Making it up just never made sense to me ever. It's like because so many notable people, notable to us, your Bob Lazars and things like that. They don't have good experiences. Like they'll say their story and then they get harassed. It's not a positive thing. It's not, like more people know their name, but it's not like they get anything from that. In fact, they get negative experiences from it more often than not.
I mean, what are you going to get from this? I don't, I teased Wayne the other night, and I made some YouTube videos before I found some support through some Facebook groups, and actually talked to a therapist at one point. That's how shook up I was about this. And I teased Wayne. I said, so far I've done about 5 or 6 podcasts, and I bought a t-shirt from Michigan Paranormal and UFO Podcast. I said, so far I'm just $26 in the hole. So it was a great t-shirt, but I love my t-shirt, but the high quality, I recommend them. But the thing is, I mean, there's no money in this. There's no the fame or the attention you get from a great portion of the public is pretty bad kind of attention.
It's not positive attention at all. Yeah, usually.
Yeah. Well, you can see here, Barry says it's in the Manistee News Advocate right on the front page.
Did you pull it up?
Yeah. Can you see it?
No, I can't see it. I can try to find it.
You need to go stake it out.
Well, I put it up and it's showing in YouTube right now. So
it's in the okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so just some amazing stories. And Guy, what do you got going on, man, coming up? I know we were talking a little bit about maybe doing a video together or something.
Yeah, what I would really enjoy very much. Well, I had a YouTube. I did not even know my YouTube channel is unmonetized. I was messing with YouTube years ago, uploaded pet videos, remodeling videos, a 4 or 5 part pellet stove review. And I'm not kidding you. And I was remodeling our house. I did some remodeling stuff.
Pellet stove sounds awesome.
I went to this therapist, right? And because he encouraged me, I said, I'm thinking of making a YouTube video. I wanted to find more witnesses, right? And I ended up making a 5-part series about, what happened, because It wasn't just my sighting. I had you know the whole story. Years later, I had my house beamed in a blue light. It was crazy. And a lot of weird stuff has happened. And I don't care. I can't make people believe it. But anyway, so I've got this YouTube channel, and somehow, without even trying, I've got not a lot of subscribers. They had like 2,340 as of tonight. They're loyal as hell. I mean, I haven't uploaded a video in like 2 years. I told you a couple of them said, are you alive? Are you physically all right?
Yeah.
And tonight when you contacted me, the reason I didn't hear the beginning of your podcast, of which I'm suddenly a part, is I've been working on a video to upload, but I'd love to have you on my channel and interview you, and maybe even you and Michelle. Or love to have you at least, and be able to corroborate. Well, for one thing, you corroborate my story. I mean, just within limits. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in my case, my coworkers disappeared for an hour and swear they woke up on tables, and I believe them because I listened to this one gal cry on the phone to me, and that was not fakery, man. She was traumatized, like, very badly. And but I would love to get you on there and us do something like we could do it live, or
Hey, whatever.
Stream or record it and edit it, and I'd just love to have you as a guest, because I've got all these people that are very interested. Well, about what I say, 2,340 or something, and enough people, and I'm not into it for the money, or it's not monetized. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm not, I'm not gonna lie to anybody. I've never invested any money. I've got a refurbished webcam that I bought on eBay for $30 7 years ago, and my computer's a Compaq Elite 8800 circa 2009. So I'm not going to yank people's chain and say, I can only keep producing these if you send me money, because that would be a lie, and I'm no good at it. So, but I'd love to have you on there, and you and I, you tell your story. I mean, which is pretty damn interesting, and it's on the. I got to ask you something. Well, you get your audience here. Let me ask you something. You said that you and I don't want to speak out of turn here. I don't know. I'm trying to recall if you told me this, or privately, but you said you felt you might have. I felt that I got a little Chihuahua puppy that's going crazy back here. You said that you felt recently that you might have had the same kind of. I felt like I got a telepathic message, and so did Alex, that to get away from this thing, And you said you felt that you did too. Is that something you could? Are you comfortable talking about that, man?
Yeah, it's so hard to describe, man. I was driving that night, and when we encountered this thing, Michelle's checking it out and saying things like, "When did our military get this?" She puts the window down.
Right.
It's making no sound. She's kind of telling me this while we're both kind of like awestruck at the same time, like all this. And then I just call it a feeling with words. I don't know how to explain. My adrenaline was already jacked when I saw this thing, because at first I was like, we're gonna be hit by an airplane crashing into Ford Road. I gotta get us out of here. And then the next thing I know is I feel these words that say, "You don't belong here. Get away.
Yeah.
You don't belong here.
Yeah.
You need to get away from here. You need to go away."
I think that's why, and I think I told you this in a private chat. I think that's why it had such a profound effect on you. And the reason I say that is I've analyzed my own response to this whole thing. I mean, there was a lot of weirdness in mine, but I think a big part of it was I knew, and this sounds so foo-foo, this sounds so woo-woo, this sounds so nutty. I'm a guy with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. I was going to get a PhD. I'm just saying, I know how crazy this sounds, but I always kind of knew they put that thought in my head, you know. I denied it for years and years because I didn't want to go there because this whole thing separates you from people as enough, you know. And then if I start, you know, and mine was just crazy, you know. My co-workers swore they were abducted. MUFON tells me that two other ladies, 6 hours, 7 hours before at the same spot, carpooling to work, just like Karen and Felicia. But the point is, I think the reason you were affected, part of the reason was because you had this kind of communication that we're not used to having, you know.
But
you described it perfectly, man. What it is, it's a feeling. My thing is feeling. I agree. I think I wrote you this feeling, thought, words. It's you get this feeling that becomes a concrete thought, and then what have we got? We're not telepathic. We've got words, you know. And Alex said it was get away. You're not supposed to be here. Mine was you're not supposed to be here, or get away. But
and mine was like a combination of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, also too is think about my background as well. I mean, first of all, Earth and space science teacher
It's got to be
/ scientist, former pilot, you know, was in the military. So not only did I have those words or feelings with words, whatever, going through my head in some way, but everything I saw also broke every rule.
Challenged your worldview, particularly with particular strength, because you've devoted your entire life to being this analytic pilot scientist guy. You know, I said that to Linda the other night. I said, can you imagine being Wayne? Here's a guy that's, you know, an earth sciences teacher. He's been in the military. He's been a pilot. It's these things where everything is binary and analytical, and you analyze things, and, you know, you plot your chart to fly, to optimize fuel. Everything's numbers, and you're in control. Okay, you're military, and then you're faced with this, which you are suddenly at the mercy of this thing, and you know that you are. You know what I'm saying? All bets are off. You don't know what's going to happen. I said to Linda, I said, for White, well, it was hard for me. I mean, but I know it was hard on you, and I understand.
Yeah.
You know?
And it took a while for us to digest what we had seen, and, you know, and then move forward. And I just felt like there was this compulsion of trying to find people to collaborate our story, basically, you know. And then it was like, let's start digging a little bit. And then we found out about the swamp gas thing, and I was like, you know, let's make a podcast. Let's talk about this. So our very first podcast was, you know, The Awakening in the Flying Triangle, where it's just a half hour, 35-minute long podcast where we try to make it a little like, you know, let's talk about something news or whatever. But it was really us telling our story about the object that we had seen. And then I pull up all the information that I can just pretty quickly to do episode 1, which we called It's Not Swamp Gas, or it was Swamp Gas, right? And all the Ann Arbor news articles, and I scoured those, and I must have read through those, and man, a ton of them. I was just going through them like a machine. Like, holy crap! There's this sheriff that says there's all these deputies that are drawing pictures. What the hell happened here in 1966? Why haven't we ever heard about this? And then find out how it was basically squashed by Project Blue Book, and Hynek telling everybody, it was swamp gas, you know. And then we talked a little bit about the, and I'm looking at our episode list here because I want to tell people, if you want to hear our first interview with our first ever real guest, it was Guy, episode 4. And we called it
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you were our very first guest.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Episode
know.
4, The Triangles Playground, one guy's earth-shattering account. Then our next episode was episode 5, and we called it Lost in the Paranormal because we had Burton and Aaron from Lost in the Dark on. So here we are, all of us together, and we were the first, the whole thing again.
Amazing.
And Burton sent me this huge email that was telling me about his Dogman experience and how much he was into all of this stuff and ghosts and things. And I was like, man, you guys gotta come out.
Burton, did you see this creature you're talking about?
I think I did. Yeah, I did just tell the story, but when I was really young, I had a cabin up north, and yeah, I think it wasn't like I saw something where it was like a big black dog that leaped into the middle of kind of like a back driveway area, a wood or I'm sorry, a grassy driveway of a cabin, and I remember it kind of lifting up a little bit, and it didn't have paws, it had fingers, and they kind of curled, and it was chasing a deer.
That's weird.
Yeah. And like at the time I was like 4 or 5 years old, so I didn't know what the hell I was seeing until many, many years later when I learned of these things that people are reporting, and that memory triggered, and I was like, oh wow, wait, I might have seen that without even realizing it. I do have a question for you though, Guy.
Sure.
What did you think of this episode of the Unsolved Mysteries? Because that had to have hit real close to home for you.
Well, it did. I've seen, oh my God, there's so darn many UFO things. I've got Discovery Plus, and I've got this and that and the other thing. There was an episode on one of those, one of these series done on, actually a couple of them that I've seen about the sightings in Michigan in 1994. They were not focused entirely on that. I think the thing that got me the most, I'm not just saying it for Wayne's, because it really, really, really bothered me the way Jack was treated.
Yeah.
That's what got me more than, well, I mean, I was blown away. I had not heard, they had some fresh witnesses in that thing.
Yes.
Who told wild stories. I mean, one of which was the couple that saw this huge shaft of water. They were camping.
Unbelievable. Dude. Yeah.
And I posted a thing in the group. I'd actually seen that in an old documentary I had on a hard drive. People in Australia had seen the same thing years and years ago.
I know that story. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But
I mean, Guy took a clip of that, and it is up on our Facebook group. If people want to see that, make sure you go over there and check it out. Yeah. And he also put the whole episode up that we're talking about.
I saw that.
You can download it. It's it's Netflix. Everybody's got it pretty much. I don't think Netflix is going to care if you get a low quality copy of it. 25 people on that group, so, but it's there. If you want to download, follow the link. It's a zip file, you can extract an MP4 from it. Just watch it, on your computer and have it. I wanted a copy because it means a lot to me. And I was there. You asked me, Burton, about, like I said, the thing with Jack really, it just threw me back against the wall. It really did. I was like, it was heartbreaking. I mean, I sent him a message on Facebook and said, it broke my heart to hear how you were treated. I mean, here I'm a guy walking around saying, hey, my coworkers got abducted and my house was beamed in a blue light. He's not even saying, hey, it's aliens or UFOs. I mean, this poor guy is just a scientist working for the National Weather Service, and the police call him and say, do you see anything? And he answers them. And for that, he's forced to move from Michigan to Georgia. I mean, and treated like crap. And I'm like, my God, this stuff has got to end. It's got to end. It's just, this is immoral. I mean, it speaks to what we are as people, that we hold each other in such low esteem that we would. Sorry about that in my phone. A community, and in his case, the community of scientists around him would treat him. My wife's got a call from our daughter in LA. That they would treat him, that he'd be the object of derision, and it's awful. I was astounded by that part of it. Really, I was like, I kept telling my wife, "You got to watch it. I can't believe, I was like, look at what they did, and I was, and it's just so messed up, man.
And as soon as Burton told me about it, I watched it, and while I was watching it, I was texting Guy. I'm like, dude, look at this, and look at the freaking date, man.
It was 10 days before that whole thing, and the funny thing was, we've done the podcast, my whole story, but I was going to play, I played music part-time, but back then I was getting out of music, and I was playing a gig out in Emily City with a little pickup band playing Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I'm working in this factory down in New Hudson, lived in Flint, and I was walking out of the house, and I saw this article about a lady in the Flint Journal who had reported it was a transcript of a 911 call, and this is on the 17th. I'm walking out of the house to go play this gig, and it's on like the front page of like the C section of the Journal, and it's a transcript of this 911 call. This lady calling the Flint police, screaming, "There's this thing about the house across the street," and it said children screaming in background. And I'm reading this. I've never seen anything like that in the Flint Journal. I was like, it's like the National Enquirer, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, these things, and then and driving out to that gig, I'd read that article and I was stunned. And I'll never forget driving out to Emily City. I said to my then wife, I said, I'll never forget that I said this. I was just, the article really shocked me. And I said, man, it would be cool to see a UFO, thinking I'm never going to see a UFO. And especially up close,
Yeah.
And then, but it was only 8 days after, this thing in Holland, or, the west side of this. It wasn't just Holland. It was,
I mean, I said this earlier, was actually reported 300 witnesses in 42 counties of Michigan, including Muskegon, Ottawa, Barron, and Adelaide.
I didn't know that. That shocked me. That was
that's real. Yeah, that's one of the things that really shocked me as well. That it was such a massive.
There was a lot. There were some revelations for me. That was a big one among them. And they had some witnesses that I'd never seen. You never heard from. And they had wild stories. I mean, close up, the things above the lady's house and their living room full of light. And I mean, and the cop. And I mean, it's like, what, is everybody lying?
Right.
What
now in Wayne, earlier you alluded to me that there might be a little bit more to be revealed when you do interview the next guest. So maybe I'm off by saying this a little bit, but one of the things that really struck me in that episode was how it wasn't now, and again, maybe this is proven different on this episode right here. Where it wasn't necessarily like the government coming in or whatever. It was literally the dude's job. Like he had been working for the local news station since he was like 14 years old. He was a kid. This was what being a meteorologist is something he always wanted to do his whole life. And it wasn't like the government coming in. It wasn't Men in Black. It wasn't anything like that. It was just his job saying, we don't want to be known as the UFO reporting network. So you need to keep quiet about this. So it wasn't even like governmental. Again, maybe he reveals some different things when you talk to him. Maybe I'm off base here, but at least what was presented in the Netflix episode, that's what it was. And that made me go, like, it's just, it can be that simple. It can be that simple. You know what I mean? Like that. It's just like your job doesn't want you talking about it,
Right.
Like, and it was something that he was very passionate and cared a lot about. And this was what he always wanted to do with his life.
So there's Preston Dennett, who's a UFO researcher. He uploads a lot of videos last year or so, and He's got one episode called "See a UFO, Lose Your Job," and it's just he goes through all these cases where people made the mistake of being honest and lost their jobs.
See that, and it's like, what is that? Like, what? Like, why? I don't get it. Like,
people can't handle it. That's the thing,
Yeah.
is that people can't. It scares the hell out of them. Obviously, it challenges their worldview. If a person has a very religious, and by that I do not mean,
well,
I don't mean Baptist, Christianity, Muslim. I'm not talking about. I just mean if a person is married to the idea that they know exactly how this works, they know exactly what's possible in the universe, and that's a lot of people, believe it or not.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whether it be through religion, through science, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
there are some
Oh, yeah.
scientists who are very, this is possible, that ain't.
Right.
What? I mean,
They
yeah,
kind
you
of
don't know
there's
what's possible.
a lot of scientists that treat science like a religion.
That again, I'm talking about, again, like as I said, when I said religion, I was talking about, Methodist, Baptist, Hindu. I'm talking about religious forms of thinking, being
Mhm.
unable to accept the idea that you or I don't have all the answers, which I've
Yes.
always been that way. And I was still messed up over what happened to me. I mean, it was still pretty shocking. Looking for I got a chihuahua that's 9 weeks old and he's running around in circles.
Well, Burton, speaking
this?
of your point, check this out. This is what you were just talking about with the number of reports that happened in that one night. So
That
I'm
puppy
sharing
is
my
adorable.
screen here. This is
Everybody.
from the video. So this is the
Hastings.
right. There's the witnesses. Now look at this.
Okay, this is what I was talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. It wasn't just in those couple of
Let me
Go
try
ahead
to
and
pause
yeah.
it here.
right at the end of that shot,
Right.
right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is
Look
not
at all
just
those schizophrenic people.
right. No, yeah.
And look at how,
I mean, I'm being
far in the
sarcastic.
middle of the state too.
And you know what else? Hang on. You know what that does? Okay, so not really including the gigantic cluster on the bottom left,
I don't know.
but the rest of it is basically the outline of the Manistee National Forest.
Well,
Yeah.
Like that's all in. That's the hot spot for Dogman. Like that's the Manistee National Forest right there, and especially that one that goes all the way to the right. That's almost Lansing. Like that's
Yeah.
halfway in between Grand Rapids and Lansing. If
well,
not more.
I know this. They were in Flint on the
Right.
18th.
Right. Exactly. Now that was something that was another thing I wanted to ask you about, Guy, because
Yeah.
these now maybe they just didn't get into it in the Netflix episode. Did all those reports, did all of them, were they all seeing the exact same thing? I don't know, because what it
No.
sounds like they were seeing was 3 to 4 lights moving in strange
Right,
ways, whereas you
right.
saw the triangle.
Exactly. They
So
saw.
I
They
don't
did
know.
not, to my knowledge, I didn't hear anyone. I've not heard anyone in the various shows I've seen talking about sightings in '94. I don't recall, and I could be, I might be wrong, but I don't recall in any of the shows I've seen anyone over on the west side of the state stating specifically that what they saw was the triangulars. Well, no, wait a minute. That's wrong. I recall there was a show. Man, what was it? The guy's name only ran like 5 episodes, and one episode was all about I don't know if it was about March of '94, but it was about Lake Michigan and Holland, and a gal and her daughter had a huge triangle fly over their heads. But in the show we're talking about, the one that just aired on Netflix, the Unsolved Mysteries thing, I don't think anybody said they saw a triangle. So
But no, they did not. But But a lot of people did report they saw the 3 different lights flying in a triangular pattern, especially with the radar. Like that's what the radar was showing, that they were in a triangular pattern at least. So it might not have been one craft that was a triangle, but I mean that's something.
No,
right?
I remember I remember them saying that. Of course, it rung a bell when some gals said that they were in a triangular pattern, or I think they said it more than once.
Yeah.
So, but they described them as independent lights, I think, kind of.
Yes.
Here's an interesting fact. Here's a factoid about Guy that you'll want to file away. I laughed at people that smoked cigarettes, right? I was like, man, who would like a piece of paper? I started smoking after this episode. I was 41. I did. Oh, my nerves were shattered. I mean, I don't care who wants to call me a weak stick or whatever. I mean, in a 3-day period, I had so much to process. I mean,
dude, there was so much. There was so much. And again, people, if you want to check out that interview with Guy, it's episode 4. It's one of our very first episodes, but it was one of the best. It was
so good.
Yeah, it's still one of the best. And then we followed that up later with episode 14 when all these puzzle pieces started to come together with these other witnesses.
Crazy.
Like Alex and Ed. This again, same day as Guy, saw the same exact craft, but early in the morning. But the previous night, those two.
The previous night, I gotta interject.
Well, let me see if I get this right, and you correct me. They never knew each other, but Guy was playing in a band in Imlay City. That's where Ed first ran into Guy without knowing anything. They didn't know each other, and he asked somebody in the band if they would play Wipeout, and somebody responded to him and said, "Sorry, man, we don't know the words to the song," being a smartass. Come to find out, Ed and Guy were in the same bar before the sightings happened.
Well, how it all came down was,
come on,
I did the first, what was it, episode 4, right? And Alex and Ed heard it, right, one way or another.
Yeah, Alex said he was in tears when he heard your story.
Alex said he broke down crying.
Yeah.
But Ed and I, you had this brainstorm. Let's have a round table where all 5 of us have seen a triangle, and that was a fun thing and informative, and I found it really interesting.
It was great.
I was excited about it, and Ed was honest in the run up to that. You introduced me to Ed. We were talking on Messenger, and he said, "Guy, I know I saw it, at 4:00 in the morning on a Friday in March of '94, but I don't know the date." Right? So he wasn't sure that he'd seen it, hours before me on the 18th, right? Literally, the night before the podcast, he messages me. He says, "Hey, man, I remember the date." I said, "Oh, yeah, how'd you remember it?" He said, "Man," he said, "it was St. Patty's Day." And he said, "I went up to the Night Owl bar at Imlay City to have a couple of beers." He said, "Band said they were taking requests, so I went up and said what you just explained." He said, "Hey, how about playing Wipeout?" And some smart ass said, "We don't know the words." He said, "Really chapped my ass, Ed's got that,
Yeah.
And I just about fell out of my chair, because I'd never been to Imlay City before. About a month ago, we drove out there. For the first time I've ever seen it in daytime, really. I've seen the city. I never go out that way. I'd never been there before, but I played Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with a band called Debbie Lee and the Cruisers, right? And I said, "Dude," I said, "I was the piano player in that band." So we were like in the same room. And what what's the word I'm looking for? What the connection, what enabled him to recall the exact date was this interaction he had with this band I was in. It could have been me. I don't think I would have said something like that. I was pretty diplomatic, but I don't know. It wasn't him and I talking, but just the fact that we were both in that same bar, and then like 27 years later, we meet and find out. I could not believe it, man. I was stunned. I was like, but stuff like that has been happening to me ever since, particularly that blue light thing. It's just been crazy. So
Just real quick, I want to say hi to Rick Davis. Rick, thank you for joining us tonight, even though we're going to start wrapping it up here soon. But Rick, thanks for coming on board and checking us out live. And he posted, if you know what is going on, you know that the ones that you see will not harm you. But when the quote unquote others get here, they pretend they are saving you. So that's interesting. So, I mean, that kind of insinuates some different breeds or different races of aliens that are here. And then we got Barry, who puts up some interesting information. He says, look up UFO Finder, and I'll give you all the probably should have said, it'll give you all the reports in Michigan, whether it's saucers, black triangles, or orbs, the dates, and a brief description. Yeah, they I know there's the National UFO Reporting Center, and that's where I put our sighting, because I wanted to look on there for triangles specifically on that same day. And there was all kinds of triangle sightings around our sighting of March 9th, 2018. And they kind of popped up all around Southeast Michigan. But yeah, this is absolutely the coincidences, the synchronicities, whatever you want to call them, are very, very strange.
It happens. I'm in another group on Facebook, and it's only about 160, maybe 170 people, and it's a lot of the people. If you watch UFO documentaries, a lot of the people you see in those documentaries are in that group. I mean, we're talking big name people, and just well known in this. Well, they're ordinary people just like you and I and Barry. I mean, they've just had crazy experiences, but well documented. And just lost my train of thought. It's great to be 70 because you can just get lost. You just float off into the ether. Are you gonna let me interview you for my channel? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I'm gonna start listening to Barry's thing. I want to learn more about this cryptid stuff.
And because you guys are talking about synchronicities right now, and there's been so much of that. I would say that's been a very huge theme in the Michigan UFO sightings and paranormal encounters podcast. I said this to you earlier, Wayne, but for all of you, I have a suggestion. There is a show on Amazon Prime called Hellier, Hellier. And that's the name of a town in Kentucky. And it's a documentary series about 15 episodes long or so, where they deal with the paranormal and stuff like that, but really they deal heavily with synchronicities, and like stuff just kept unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And the entire time I was watching it, I was thinking of Guy and Wayne and the Michigan UFO podcast, like thinking of all of this. And I was like, this lines it's like the same thing happening to these people that's happening to you guys right now, and it just blew my mind. So like, if you guys get a chance to check that out, at least check out a episode or two. It's fascinating. I think you guys would really enjoy it.
Yeah, dude, I've got so much stuff to go over, man.
It's the haunted spooky season.
Yeah, I know. So
I know you gotta be excited about getting Jack Blueshong. I'm excited.
Man, we are so excited, dude. And like I said, the questions that I'm coming up with, I've picked through that episode. And I've kind of been dissecting it and looking, and some personal contact I've had with him and communications. I'm going to dig down some different rabbit holes with him right off the start. And it kind of, to throw the teaser out there, it has to do with these synchronicities, because if you remember right at the very, very beginning of that episode,
I was just going to say it. Yeah.
He talks about people used to say it could only happen to Jack.
Jack. Yep.
My first question's gonna be, can you tell us some of those things before this whole UF thing?
Yeah.
Right? Before this whole incident, can you tell us why would people say that? What happened, man?
No, that was something Barry had asked me. That was something that got me. When he said that, I went, oh my God. I have begun to believe it. I know this is so damn foo-foo, but it's almost like people are placed in these positions to, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yes.
When he said that, I was like, what?
Jacques Vallée has that same type of
along those lines
theory.
Yeah.
That once you come in contact with these things, it's almost like predestined, like that you have to be a certain type of person somewhere to have these encounters or an encounter, and it sends you on a totally different pathway in your life. And
I wouldn't be married to Linda. I wouldn't be married to Linda had it not been for that blue light. And we don't have time for that. I don't want to bore anybody with it, but I promise you, how her and I got together was right after the blue light. I did a whole bunch of stuff I never do. I was in a horrible marriage where, believe me, sometimes men get abused, and physically, financially, and everything else. And I was at the end of the road, man. I watched a documentary called How to Die in Oregon so many times. And again, I was wanting out of this thing, man. We were living across the street from each other. I'd bought houses across the street from each other, and I was in a real funk. And what happened after my whole life, it went an entirely, and in my case, it helped me. I mean, I don't know, could have been incidental. Maybe they wanted me to be here simply because they know I don't know any better than to tell the truth. And hey, he'll talk about it, But it seems like they kind of. I just don't think this was all luck, man. I don't think it was luck I met you. I'm sure it's probably not luck I met Barry or whatever. It's just
Well, speaking of Barry and people in the chat, Rick happened to mention here. He said, "And your heritage is from Scotland, right?" Yeah, I'm half Scottish. Come to find out.
Are you really? I didn't know that.
I'm like 1/3 and then mostly British. So
yep.
That's the Scotland is the farthest I've ever been away from Michigan. I did visit Scotland once. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
that's another synchronicity right there. Yeah.
No, I mean it is. It's here's the thing. I've wondered this, and this is kind of maybe a screwball kind of idea, but I've thought, is it that these synchronicities happen to everybody at the same way, and they just don't notice them? Is it that we've tuned into being to go, or do we have more of them? I don't know.
I think 9 times out of 10 they go unnoticed, but when they do start to get noticed, then it's like a snowball effect, and and there's more and more and more, and in between, like I was saying to Wayne earlier,
like somebody threw a switch in your
right. Exactly. Exactly. Like I was saying to Wayne earlier, was I didn't even I was watching the Unsolved Mysteries episode, and I didn't even I was like, this feels like something I should message Wayne about. And then I saw the date pop up where this all happened on March 8th, 1994. And I was like, there was an overwhelming feeling in me where I was like, I have to tell Wayne.
You can imagine you messaged him, but it was really a big deal for me.
Right.
It was
and that's what I found out later.
And he immediately got a hold of me. So you see what I'm saying? It was just like, because I would have never, I don't think I would have ever found that. I would have seen Unsolved Mysteries and thought Robert Stack 19.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so would I.
I promise. Yeah. So, I didn't know what was in,
and of course,
being
hey,
remake. Yeah.
Just real quick, we have Stephen Clark in as a watcher right now saying hello from Newago, Michigan. Well, hello, Stephen. Welcome.
I don't know where
and then we got a Czechoslovakian. Barry's a Czechoslovakian, I guess, eh?
Wow.
So there we go. Yeah. Well, that kind of goes to prove my point that, our podcast is heard now. I found out, I did the analytics on it. We're downloaded in about 80 countries now.
Oh my
it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And
that is wild. I mean, you've done a great job. You and Michelle do a fine job, and you mix it up. I mean, you listen to all points of view. Probably, and I've been straight with you much more so than I probably should take a cue from you, because I tend to dismiss some, some people who, say people that try to tie all of this directly to, say, the Book of Timothy or something. I'm like,
right,
or, whatever. And it's nothing against religion at all. I mean, I think we all love the philosophy of Jesus, which was very much like the philosophy of Muhammad and all these guys. But it's not at all a slam on religion. But I mean, sometimes I'm too quick to judge. It's a weakness of mine, and I admit it. So
fair enough.
You guys look at a lot of different things, which is something people enjoy. I enjoy it, so
yeah.
Buy a T-shirt.
Yeah,
I like mine.
Michelle's over here.
Yeah,
we want to keep you on the air, man. No, I'm kidding.
I've got a T-shirt and a tank top that I love.
There you go.
Hey, also, hang on though, Michelle. Did Michelle see the Unsolved Mysteries episode?
Yeah, twice.
And how did it make you feel? What was your reaction to it?
I want to go camping out west.
Okay.
It's something about the waters. I mean, I've always been drawn to water anyhow. And I told Wayne that, when we retire, that's one of the first things that I want to look for is lakefront property.
Yeah. Yeah. That the story of the water getting sucked up into the UFO was too, it's odd that March 8th, there were 2 campers. That's not the time you go camping in Michigan.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Those are some hardy souls there.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know. It said something about them going upstairs. So was it a cabin?
I think they were on the beach by like a hotel or something.
Yeah, that's what he said. I was like,
that's the way I interpreted it as well. But I don't. I was a little confused by that as well.
Well, yeah, because I can't imagine actually camping out, on the terrain in March off of Lake Michigan. It is crazy cold.
Very cold. Very cold. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a guy called the Iceman who likes to go swimming in Lake Superior. Yeah. Yeah. He's on YouTube. He's cool to watch.
Well, speaking about it's something to do with water. I mean, there's what they put up there in the episode right there. There's
literally that's the graphic artist rendition.
Now, think about this. They made a quick mention of this, but Jack was only showing craft or these reflections on the radar, whatever was in the sky. The lowest he ever said they were about 6,000 feet when he was paying attention to them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and they mentioned this.
A lot lower.
They were like, that must have been one hell of a waterfall to see, considering it was 6,000 feet over a mile high.
That's
pulling
insane.
Water up.
Right.
No wonder they ran like crazy.
But did that
be terrifying?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember that report mentioning how high up. I don't even know if maybe all they saw was a light. Maybe they didn't even see a craft. I don't know.
They described it as the water column was being lit up from above and behind. Yeah.
I mean, you could.
And Jack
a light from above could do that.
When Jack was being interviewed or talking to Virginia Tilley, he said that where those, because he mapped all of this stuff out off the radar.
Yeah.
Where those campers said that they saw what they saw, it matched up on his radar screen.
Wow.
And it corroborated the sightings of those 2 campers.
And between the date of when it happened, the fact that it was in early March, and that there was physical data to back up what people were saying, that as soon as that, I was like, I have to message Wayne right now. He has to see this.
And not only that, that was the only part of Lake Michigan that wasn't frozen over at the time.
What? Hang on. I missed that. What? Oh my God.
These things all clustered together. The first one's almost like they pulled, they like put out a beacon of calling to these other craft, and they all came there. And one of the things Jack said was that was the only part of Lake Michigan where they were gathered that was not frozen over. Yep. So it's the water.
What? Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does make sense. We are the largest freshwater source on planet Earth. So
what's funny? When I after that incident, I had out on US 23, and I'm not just saying this. Very shortly thereafter, I don't like to fly, but a buddy paid for me to fly down to St. Louis. He wanted me to. We just wanted to have a visit, and a guy I used to work with in some bands. And he flew my wife and I to St. Louis, and we were flying into Bishop. And we were, depending upon the wind, we were landing from the south, right? They got a north, south, and east, west. So we're landing right. I literally flew right over where I saw this UFO. And as we approached the area, now granted these are small lakes, but I was astounded by the number of lakes in that. Even though I've lived here my whole life, you don't realize it till you're up in the air.
Yeah.
In that area, I was like, oh my God, look at all this water. And I immediately went, these things stay in water. I know. And that's what I swear to you, I thought that, and that was in 94 when we were landing. It had just happened maybe 4 or 5 months before, I'd had this encounter, and I saw that water, and I thought, they go and I don't think they just take water. I mean, they obviously are doing something with water in terms of, their craft but I also think that these things are, they're transmedium. Even the government says that. And I think they kind of hide in bodies of water,
Well, you think about the Tic Tac video and that kind and all these videos that are coming out from the Navy now, where they're like diving in and out of water. And this doesn't make really, I don't know if this makes any sense. Maybe it makes more sense if these crafts are terrestrial and not extraterrestrial, but maybe somehow they're being powered by water. Maybe the water like recharges them in some way. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but they definitely, and only in shit. What I mean, I don't know. The last 20 or so years, do we have good enough camera technology that's going to be able to catch these things, even in the military, that's going to be able to catch these things going in and out of water? I watched one earlier today, a new video that just came out that like you can see, like it's the same kind of video as the Tic Tac, but like it's almost a little bit more detailed in a way, and you can see it just diving in and out of the ocean. And I think it was taken off of like the
Puerto
coast
Rico.
of Cuba. Puerto Rico. Yeah.
I've seen that video, and it's amazing.
I couldn't believe that.
Amazing.
Not only was it diving, but it split into two.
Yeah.
Afterwards, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something too about
Agua Dia.
Earlier, Barry or you mentioned, one of you were asking in that the film that we all watched on Netflix, did anybody actually see a triangle? And I've watched like every UFO documentary made in the history of mankind. I mean, literally,
Same.
Damn near.
Yeah.
I don't read a lot. My eyes are bad anymore. So I used to be a voracious reader. I don't read now. I watch videos. But what I was going to say was, a lot of times I've seen a ton of videos where people see an orb, right, first, and then it morphs into like a saucer or a triangle or splits into two. But they very often morph into, like I said, like a saucer or a triangle. I've heard it over and over, and I mean, it sounds crazy, but Guy Merritt's life has been crazy. So, I can accept it. I mean, I've just heard it too many times. I mean, again, the idea that people are just going to invent these stories, that does not ring true to me. I mean,
No.
It's funny. I'll tell you a quick story, and it's short. I got a buddy who's a cop. He's a cop in Chicago. His wife's a cop. They're both cops. Tough guy, right? And he's had two really weird encounters. One with two enormous orange orbs that were hovering above a cemetery, and that then started roiling or kind of spinning, and then shot off into the stratosphere at 100,000 miles an hour. It was crazy. And people sitting on some steps and some houses were screaming, and they saw it too. So, and he's seen a triangle. It's crazy. But what was my point with this again? You got me. You said you want to come on, and I'm tired. I've been up since very early. But what were you just talking about, Barry? We were talking about something, and I was
You
like,
mean Burton?
Burton. I'm sorry, Burton.
No,
Barry, yeah.
You're good.
Okay, I called him Aaron for the longest time.
But yeah, we were talking about how they morph and stuff, and I lost my whole train of thought. But man, it was something that I thought you'd find interesting, and now I can't remember what it was.
Just how they were just how some people saw the different lights, and some people saw the triangle, and how specifically with the Netflix documentary, some of the reports were 4 lights, and then one of them would go off, and then it would just be the 3. I can't remember totally, but it was something like that.
I remember what I was gonna say. We were talking about whether or not to believe people and stuff, and it's funny when he comes up once a year because he's a cop and he's not got a lot of people to talk to. So once a year he comes up, and we talk about everything politics, but mostly UFOs, and what this could mean. And when I first met him, he was really quick to dismiss the testimony of a lot of people. And he said, people lie. And I said, Tom, he's not just a cop, he's like a detective, right? And I said, you're dealing with this subset of humanity. I mean, guys going to bars and tell gals, hey, baby, I was a Navy SEAL, or I played minor league baseball, because they get something for it. Oh, they hope, right?
Yeah.
And I said, you're dealing with criminals. Yeah, they lie at an inordinate rate compared to the regular population. People lie for a purpose, right? And there's nothing but bad news, pretty much, from this stuff. I mean, so I think when you hear people say, I saw an orb and then it split into 2 or it became a triangle, or whatever. It's a rare bird. It's a sliver of people that are going to just cook. If people want to tell a story, it's going to be like I joked. It's going to be, hey, baby, I was a Navy SEAL, or I played minor league baseball, or I've got a PhD in physics, or something that raises their stock socially. It's people don't like.
And this
does the opposite.
Right. This is like, hey, baby, I'm a pedophile. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. Let's not go there.
But you know what I'm saying? Close.
It is historically accurate to say that you do become more of a social pariah.
Absolutely. It's not even a question.
When you talk about this stuff in public. And
all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in here, because whether you guys want to believe this or not, we have missing time going on, because we've been at this at 2 hours and 5 minutes already.
Wow.
Yeah. For being an hour and a half, we're still going. But I want to show you guys this. This is what I was talking about. Watch the graphic here. This is from the Netflix. This is Jack talking about where they were located in Michigan, and look at what happened. See all that white stuff around there?
Form a triangle.
This is the ice.
Oh,
This area here is the only place in Lake Michigan at the time where it wasn't frozen and there's the craft all meeting together that he was capturing on radar.
I didn't realize that they were showing the ice. That's, oh my God.
Yeah, that's the ice, and the darker area is the water. So because
wow.
they map all that stuff out, because that helps.
Wow.
It helps with
the
weather predictions.
This triangular configuration is something you see over and over. Whether it's 3 lights independent of each other forming a triangle, or a craft that's structured that is a triangle, and you see this a lot.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the example that I used. I didn't mean to be crude.
No.
No, I just mean you do kind of, as Burton said, put it very well. You there's not a person on the planet that doesn't know they're going to be a social pariah when they report these things. To some extent, there's not any, and at best, people will be neutral towards you. If you've got a really good friend, I've got a few good friends that know me really well. They've known me my entire life, and my family, and they know Butch, or guy, everybody calls me Butch. Butch he's never told fish stories. There's no way he would make this up. But most people aren't going to invent this stuff. I mean, hardly anybody, I think. But
yeah,
I agree. Like you said earlier, Guy, like there might be a small sect.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a few.
But like,
trying to make money or sell a book,
right, or just be on a Netflix documentary or a podcast or something, you know.
Sure. Yeah,
right.
But but ultimately,
I'm not saying that never happens, but I think it's like real small.
Right. I agree with that.
Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong.
Awesome.
Before.
All right. So Barry did put something up here. I'm going to read. It says, I'm reading a report here in the spring of 2014. Unusual lights recited. I don't know. Recited.
Probably reported.
Reported over the water near Holland. The incident sparked hundreds of calls into dispatch. The 911 calls were recorded.
Barry, what do you know what month that was in? I'd love to know if it was in March.
2014. Yeah, Barry, if you're still on,
that'd be 20 years after.
Yeah. And let's see. He says it's just here. The 911 calls were recorded and can be heard online. That's also actual recordings of the 911 operator calling the National Weather Service.
Okay. So, all right.
Yeah. So Barry, hopefully you're still listening.
Yeah, Barry, if you can send us any links for that, that would be sweet.
Yeah. And tell us what month that was.
Yeah.
When that's going down.
Obviously, it's a hot spot, huh?
Yeah, apparently.
Crazy. So hopefully he'll respond, or he can send an email to the podcast with that information. But
we definitely need to do this again.
Yeah, for sure. But one thing I am doing, I reached out to Ray Szymanski last night, the author of the Alien Shades of, or the Shades of, what is it? The Alien Shades of Grey trilogy. And the one book was Swamp Gas My Ass, where he did all the 1996 investigations. And I kind of told him a little bit about Ed's sighting the same day as Guy's. And I asked him, I said, is there any way I can get a hold of a flight log, or how would I go about finding out if they dispatched the F-16 fighters on March 18th at about 5 a.m. to chase down a craft out of Selfridge?
Yeah, because Ed said in his case, it floated over Scar, sort of floating away.
Yep.
It warp speed, and then 2 F-16s chased it. And you'd think there would be some way to document. There'd be
So I'm going to I'm going to see if I can get some documentation, and because if there is that documentation and I can get it, that even puts more credibility to this whole thing that was going on in March 18th of 94.
Yeah.
And so both sides of our state, the whole state, was being inundated again, like in 1966, by these craft, whether they were triangles, it might be of a different type, versus the saucer, round, glowing orb looking type of craft. I mean, it's just, oh man, it's just crazy. But yeah, so we got that interview coming up. Check YouTube channel Monkey Works for flight information. Okay, thanks, Rick. I will do that. So Rick said, yeah, great information. Check with a YouTube channel from Monkey Works for flight information. So I will do that. But everybody, hey, check it out. We've been going now 2 hours and 10 minutes, and we haven't even interviewed Jack yet to have our conversation after we interview him. So I can only imagine what that's going to be like.
Back. I had to bring snacks for this.
Snacks.
Yeah.
All right. So, Guy, any last minute thoughts you want to share? Because I think we need to round this out. I got to get up in a few hours.
Calling him Barry. I'm old. I'm tired. I had not met him before. There's somebody in the chat, I think, that popped up that was Barry. So I do apologize for that.
You're fine.
Again, I apologize for a very bad example of what it's like to.
You're all right.
I have a weird name. It's okay.
No, Burton Cummings from Canada, one of great band, good rock band back.
I love Burton Cummings, Tim Burton, Burton Snowboards.
There you go. Good name. Appreciate
right,
you guys, and it was fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a very good pleasure to meet you tonight, Guy. That was
really
that was
nice to
very
meet
cool.
you. And I'm going to listen to your podcast and learn about these wild cryptid things you guys are talking about, Jason. I believe you completely. I mean, again, I don't think I used to poo-poo Bigfoot, and I think I had my head where the sun doesn't shine because far too many people have seen it. I mean, again, is everybody lying? I don't think so. So
Too many.
All right.
What is it? I don't know.
Burton, any closing thoughts? Where can people find your podcast? What's going on? And
I got the Lost in the Dark podcast. That's pretty much strictly on YouTube. And then follow the Reaper podcast is my paranormal show, which is pretty much strictly audio. I don't have a YouTube for that yet. But follow the Reaper is where people submit their firsthand stories, and I pretty much react to them and stuff like that. So if you want to hear some good firsthand stories of paranormal encounters, check that out. And if you have a paranormal encounter yourself that you would like shared on the show, please reach out to me at followthereaperpodcast@gmail.com or on any social media.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, it's been really great, and I am going to be in contact with you here soon because I would like you guys to send me at least one question that you guys would want me to ask Jack for you.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's only fair. That way, I think all four of us, because Michelle's over here being the silent stalker.
No, I'm stalking the chat, looking at Steve's message about trying to get a hold of Joey Graves.
Ooh.
That's I think the mom's name was Virginia, but Joey's the first one to see it in that household because it was his screams that woke his parents up.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, yeah, good point.
Somebody was paying attention to the episode.
Yeah.
You rock, Michelle.
Yeah, here's what Steven said before we get out of here. He says, I've been trying to locate someone I used to hang out with, Joey Graves, to ask him about his recollection of events and to ask about any other encounters. I haven't been able to find them yet. Interesting.
Ooh.
Interesting. Yes.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'll be sure to send you a question.
I think it's gonna have to be the four of us coming back together here after a week after we release episode 41 of the audio podcast with Jack, and
Be fun.
let's listen to it again. Let's dissect it and give them some good questions, and we'll
I want you to do your homework. You're our point man. You've got to ask some great questions, man.
Well, Michelle's very good at interpreting speech and everything else too, so I'm sure she's gonna have some stuff she's gonna want to add. So yeah, All right, Barry. Well, Barry, Rick, I mean, everybody, Steven. We had Big Willie show up earlier. Hey, everybody that showed up and watching in the future. Hey, we want to say thank you very much for checking us out. Our second live. I don't know if this is a true official episode just yet, but I mean, these things just happen. So, all right, everybody, take care, and we're going to get out of here. Have a good night.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again. And links to help support us is down in the show description. If you want to buy a t-shirt, make a donation, whatever you want to do is fine. But thanks, everybody. And again, have a good night.